Welcome to the Ed Sales Edge Live. I am coming to you from Phoenix, Arizona. I am going to the Fiesta Bowl tonight, college football, and their semifinal game is here. I'm not a college football fan, but I am a fan of my friends. And when I moved back from Mexico, I said, I want to go to more sporting events with my buddies. I really missed that over the last 5 years. And so I put my money where my mouth is. I got on a plane last night, flew 4.5 hours. I'm going to this game and I'll fly back tomorrow. So that's where I am. And I'm with my friends. And I want to introduce my friend and my co-host, John Gamba. Welcome, John.
Hey, it's great to see you, Josh, and go Canes. I have a lot of friends who are rooting for the Canes, although I love Ole Miss. I love the whole Lane Kiffin story, and I'll be watching tonight, but I'm a big Canes fan. I have a lot of friends from Miami, college friends who were from Miami, and some good friends who have kids at University of Miami. So I'm excited for tonight. It'll be a great game.
Nice.
And
Cool.
also, how about this? A distraction from the news.
Yes, agreed.
I've had to move to turning screens off. I've had to move to turning the TV off and reading some good books. So that's been good.
Hopefully reading some good books and spending time with great people.
Yeah.
Sounds
like fun there. Are you in Scottsdale or Phoenix?
I'm in Scottsdale.
Nice. That's awesome.
So we should say it out loud again because we said it last week. We have transitioned this show from Breaking the Grade to Ed Sales Edge. I have transitioned from calling it a LinkedIn Live to the Ed Sales Edge Live. The reason that we did that is because our perfect clients, people we know we can help the most and want to help the most, were telling us that they want strategies. They want to hear the stories of people who have been successful and their strategies to scaling their education companies. And while Breaking the Grade was a wonderful show for the 4 years that we ran it, we have moved in this direction, and the Ed Sales Edge, giving people an edge on ed sales, bringing them to the edge of breakthroughs in sales, made a lot of sense. Is there anything that you want to say in terms of why we made that move before we kind of get into the show? I just wanted to give a little bit of space because, I think that you and I grew up in homes where you just move along. We don't make a big deal out of things. And this is a big deal. So I wanted to give you a little bit of space if you wanted to reflect back on what Breaking the Grade was and what Ed Sales Edge will be.
No, I just think that it's been great to be in Breaking the Grade and kind of co-hosting it and sharing insights. I love the denotation and connotations around Edge, and I think that this is going to be a great forum. I'm excited to engage with the audience, get some unique insights, still share some stories, but really focus on some strategies and anecdotes to help key audience members push forward and really dominate in 2026 and beyond.
Cool. We have some key audience members who have been along on the ride and are in the audience now. So people who were there, feel free to hop into the chat, tell us where you are, what your business is. John, you mentioned last week how that word edge is something that you kind of latched onto, and it made me reflect on the word, and it made me reflect on a shared experience that you and I had that we didn't know we were having, which is Lady Gaga. Lady Gaga on Howard Stern singing Edge of Glory at 6 a.m. live. And I heard that when she sang that live. And I know that you have listened to it as well. And I encourage anybody, whatever you feel about Howard Stern, Google Howard Stern, Lady Gaga, Edge of Glory live and watch that thing with your headphones on and do nothing else. It is an amazing performance.
Yeah, chills and tears, man. That was incredible, and I'm glad you reminded me of that. How both of us heard that. I don't remember if I heard that live, but I definitely have played it loud, and it definitely was a meaningful experience
Awesome.
for sure.
Cool. So I am sitting here, well, standing at the Aloft Hotel in Scottsdale, and I have positioned my camera so that I'm by a window, and because I wanted the natural
Me
light.
too, obviously.
You've got a lot of windows where you are as well. So you and I haven't spent a lot of time talking about this idea of window washing. So this will be very natural. Um, I want to set the stage here, which would be uh, one of the tests that I do with my clients very early on as we think about the perfect client. And this can be uncomfortable, especially for people in the education space, to think about a perfect client, to really narrow it down. I just had a wonderful conversation with Marcy and Ayana Klein, who have been through the Ed Sales Elevation Experience. I'm going to see them at FETC, and we're still talking about this idea of the perfect client and having one and really focusing on one and what that means for revenue and what that means for the business if you narrow it down. To get you to a place of who is your perfect client, I like to think about this idea of window washing. And I ask people to imagine that you're a window washer and you wash windows for a living. And you have two buildings in front of you. One of them has dirty windows on the left, and one of them has clean windows on the right. And in education sales, I believe if you are a window washer and you put food on the table by washing windows, you should go approach the building on the right because they value what you do. They love a clean window. They love the smell of a clean window, which when I was talking this through with Camila, she said, "What the heck does a clean window smell like?" And I described it. And they want to work with you. Now, they may have a provider already, they might have somebody who washes their windows, but there might be a way to support them regardless. The building that has dirty windows, they do not value what you do, clearly, or they'd have cleaner windows. And so you would have to convince them what a clean window does for you to begin to work with them. So hopefully that sets the stage. And I'd love to get your thoughts on this exercise of how being a window washer, believing in working with people who have clean windows resonates when it comes to sales in the education space.
Yeah, I mean it's a really interesting analogy, and it really had me thinking when you first kind of put it out there that this would be a theme, and I really tried to think about it. Um, I definitely would. I'm with you to gravitate toward the clean windows, but I have a little different spin on it. I started really thinking that maybe this is the Camila in me, really asking probing questions like she does. She thinks so deeply about things in her own
Yeah.
young way. Um, Clean windows also could be a mandate, right? How many times do you see the letters A in the window? And how many times do we think that for businesses, maybe a restaurant or somebody who's doing business, they need to have clean windows and it's a compliance thing. And it made me think of a venture that I've been working with who is in uh, the observation, evaluation, and coaching space and thinking about their perfect clients. And some of the coaching that I've provided to them was first ask the people who are cleaning windows or not cleaning their windows about how they feel about cleaning windows. And if you hear them say, I hate it, it's expensive, it's compliant, it's not useful, I know I have to do it, but it's unpleasant, you have an
Mm-hmm.
opportunity. And so the first thing I do is poll those who have to have windows washed to ask how they feel about the pain of window washing. Second thing I do is once you understand how the market feels about that service or feels about that initiative, that solution, then start thinking about who's actually doing that service in that area. We call them centers of excellence. So when I work with ventures, I'm saying your resellers, your salespeople, your founders who may have been formerly education experts or education leaders, where do they have influence with the people who have windows, so that you can talk to the ones that have clean windows about what they can do to maintain that cleanliness. And so it's asking the market how they feel about that service solution. It's about a center of excellence, or being able to concentrate your business in the area where there are a lot of windows, so that you don't have to do a window in Boston and a window in Seattle, but really concentrate in Massachusetts. And then finally, who are the people, who are the window washers in that area, and what can you do to differentiate? And this company, SwiftScore, they did just that. They found an area in Massachusetts that had a lot of schools and school districts that needed evaluation and observation, evaluation, and coaching. There was an entrenched player that wasn't doing it very well there. They weren't cleaning the windows well. And so they identified the pain point. They found an area where there was a concentration of windows, and they found an opportunity to differentiate from those who are actually cleaning the windows too expensively and not effectively. And voila, they have a niche, they have an opportunity, and they are pursuing that, and pursuing it pretty well. So that's bringing the analogy to an actual ed tech solution, and how they thought about delivering their service in a differentiated way.
You are also previewing next week's show because we will be airing an interview I did with Brooke Olson Farrell, the superintendent in Slate Valley in Vermont, who is also working with SwiftScore.
And she has clean windows.
She absolutely has clean windows, and she is the perfect client, I believe, for many of my clients, your clients, because she co-creates with companies like SwiftScore to help them build a better business. Slate Valley is a smaller school district, but that's wonderful. And if
well, let's also throw in, not only does she have clean windows, but she cleans them.
Yes. Yeah.
She gets her hands dirty. She goes right into the co-creation, co-construction mode, and really wants to innovate, and isn't afraid of challenges related to things like AI. Her lens is an asset lens, not a deficit lens. She's ready to put her toe in the water and say, if this is going to help my school and my stakeholders, we're going to do it. And we're going to do it with intention. We're going to do it with measurability, and we're going to do it, fast and furiously. And, that to me personifies the perfect client. So you're right.
There are a few elephants in the room, and you touched on one of them. Elephant number one, we already have someone. You can talk to them when you hear words like that and say, maybe we can pilot alongside. We can learn what's working. Elephant number two, you might be more expensive than the current solution. And in that case, you need to anchor to quality, you need to anchor to reliability, and you need to anchor to outcomes the leaders can defend. And elephant number three, we're happy. And that's great, because I have always believed, and I know you do as well, that a rising tide is good for all ships. And in that case, you say, fantastic, you be supportive. And then what do? You stay close. And you can stay close by offering to help. You can stay close just by nurturing through emails. And that aligns very well with what we teach in the Ed Sales Elevation Experience, that no just most likely means no right now. And so if you continue to coach and offer value to that perfect client, you will continue to earn trust, even if you're not working with them. And I know you believe in that. Is there anything in kind of those three elephants? We already have someone, you might be more expensive, or we're happy, that I missed in terms of my explanation of how you can navigate those kind of rougher waters?
Nuance. So we already have someone. Okay, you have somebody doing that window washing. Are you happy? So you got to get to that question very quickly. Are you happy with what's being provided? They're lower cost. Yeah, but are they lower cost at the expense of quality? Are they lower cost at the expense of what needs to get done in a way that's going to support your stakeholders? And then happy, that's a great one. Sometimes you have to be good at distinguishing between satisfied and happy. Yeah, but are you a raving fan? That's different from, yeah, the windows are pretty clean. And so I think the three questions, the three elephants, come down to having an inquiry mindset, really asking those questions. And in the case of SwiftScore, when they thought about it, a lot of these school districts do already have an entrenched solution to provide observation, evaluation, and coaching. Some of them are less expensive because they're not state of the art. They don't deliver the type of value that SwiftScore is delivering. And I have to say, it sometimes takes work to move from satisfaction to happy.
Mm.
And that's a modicum, or that's a function of customer success. What are you going to do to ensure that the onboarding, implementation, and celebration of usage is intentional, and you make an investment in that process? And I think Brooke would probably be pretty aligned with those philosophies.
Onboarding, celebration, usage, continuation, and then the idea of re-upping.
Well, you and I have had these conversations on thinking in threes, and let's get back to the focus of the edge strategies, right? I think of customer experience through three lenses. Onboarding, which is your basic, are you getting your usernames and passwords? And is this product or service or solution being onboarded, installed in a high quality way that leads to happiness? So onboarding is the first step in what I call customer experience. Implementation is, now we're onboarded with usernames and passwords. Everybody has access, but how is it implemented in a way that's pedagogically aligned, in a way that's going to deliver outcomes that are better than the other window washer? How are you going to implement it in a way that's going to make teachers, students, administrators happy? And how do you measure it? And how are those processes of implementation rooted in research, foundational research? And how can a school district and a superintendent like Brooke be sure that by using this, it's going to make her life easier and happier? And then the third one, so again, onboarding, implementation, and then customer success, the third part, which is a celebratory role. So now we have 10 schools implemented in Vermont. All 10 are using it. And we're celebrating the usage of those who are using it in a way where measurable value is being delivered. And if they're not using it, if a district has purchased it, but some schools are not using it, or some teachers are not using it, what are we doing to respectfully, responsibly, and professionally nudge those anticipated users to use it? We know they're time starved, in a way that can be celebrated, and there's an art to that. So if you do onboarding, implementation, and customer success well, I think you're mastering customer experience and on your way to a raving fan client.
So I think one of the really beautiful things about this show is how you use the word nuance. I am less nuanced on this than you are. That's why you bring this particular lens. And so when I hear what you say and I agree, I want to know where the word retention falls, because as the salesperson that I was for my companies, I was especially with Flex Academies, we were on 1-year contracts. I would try and get them to sign multi-year contracts, but the PTAs would always say, no thanks, but you're in for the year. And so I was consistently looking at my retention rate so that I could keep those clients year over year. And by the way, we had a 92% retention rate. So where does retention fall under that celebratory portion, or is that the fourth part of this?
No, it's not the fourth part. It's the result of doing those three things well. So in my view, again, nuance and I'm not God, but I have a lot of experience in this way, and I'll talk about Flex. I would be willing to bet, I'm not a gambler, that although I'm pretty confident that your 92% was a function of doing those three things well. So if I go back to a dashboard, a composite, a mosaic of this school district has 10 schools. Those 10 schools, if you can measure how well you onboarded them, were they confused? Was it interoperable? Is there single sign-on? Did they get their usernames and passwords in an easy and secure way? Is that a 10 out of 10 or is that a 2 out of 10? Implementation. Now that you've onboarded and you've implemented with Flex Academies, are you able to show, same with Swift Score, same with all the clients I work with, are you able to show pedagogical alignment, or that the students that are engaged in that environment after school, the world of Flex, same with tutoring, same with every, math, literacy, are they increasing their competencies as a student or a teacher or an administrator in a measurable way? Is that a 10 or is it a 2? Okay, now we're onboarded, but they're not using it, and they don't find it an indispensable product or service that's going to make their life easier. 2. And then 3 is if you've onboarded well and you've implemented well, but you don't have an intentional process to look at the power users and celebrate them, and you don't look at the users who have not started using it yet and nudge them into using it, guide them into using it without being a nudge. So nudge them in without being a nudge. You're starting to get 8s, 9s, and 10s out of 10 in all three of those areas, and that leads to 92% or better. If you're not intentional in those three areas, I think your retention and renewal wanes.
And when you get to that 92% retention rate, chasing more leads isn't the answer. Chasing those schools that you know you can help, that want to be helped, back to window washing, is truly the way to go. And I had this discussion, as I said, a really healthy discussion with Marcy and Ayana earlier this morning. And, was kind of saying, hey, look, I'm not necessarily saying that you can't eventually start talking to people who have dirty windows. But to get the traction that you want, at least in one of your core offers, let's find those people who have the clean windows, who want the clean windows, who you can sit down with and have an amazing conversation with, and know, and we haven't used this word, and I've been thinking a lot about this word because I believe you use this word a lot, know that you are aligned. And aligned is a word used quite often. And I was actually going to ask you at the top of the show, because I'm here with my friends and because you're one of my best friends. Like, I was thinking, like, what makes a best friend? Alignment. And I'm not saying that Will and SwiftScore and Brooke and Slate Valley are best friends, but they are aligned. Where does alignment come in?
I think it's a great question too. I think it's critically important. I do use that term a lot. And the first thing that I thought of when you brought it up is um, milestone-based closes. What I mean by that, Ben, back to edge and strategies, is in a lot of ways, it's getting harder and harder to do a full district implementation. Whether you use it, partial implementations or pilots, there's kind of a pejorative feeling around the word pilot because sometimes people feel like that's a free pilot. But I'm saying a paid pilot. You have 10 districts, you have 10 schools in your district. Let's start with 3. The importance of alignment is not let's do these 3 and hope that we can get to 10. It's let's do this 3. This is what we're going to collectively deem success in onboarding, implementation, and customer success. And if we deliver on that, are we aligned that we're going to go forward with all 10? And so if you can show Brooke, if you can show school districts, leaders and decision makers, that with those 3 out of 10 schools, you've delivered on that aligned measure of success, you're not going to have to sell. You're going to have to show a report that you've delivered and that you've agreed early on that if you were able to deliver, you are aligned and you go forward with growth inside the district and renewal. And I think it's fairly simple, but where people get tripped up is, you're right, Josh, onboarding doesn't happen as fluidly because people are chasing the next lead. Implementation is kind of there, but it's not intentional enough to prove that the implementation of that solution, reading, MTSS, tutoring, observation evaluation, has led to an outcome that is truly measurably valuable. And then finally, it doesn't take much to take the power users inside of Slade Valley and put them in a case study, put them on stage, get them into a webinar and have them talk about how they've used that solution to measurably impact student success or teacher growth. I just think that's super important. And what I see is a lot of talk in this area, but when you really invest resources and time and energy, the alignment can happen, the retention happens, the renewal happens, and that all important, ready? NRR happens, the net recurring revenue, not the annual recurring revenue, the net recurring revenue, which is a function of growth inside of districts, renewals, and new logos, new deals. And that happens, in my experience, with a super intentional commitment to customer experience in those 3 areas.
And I'll use your word, nuance. I want to point out something in the fine print on doing a case study that has helped a lot of my clients, our clients, people we know, do case studies, which is when you are doing a case study, come at it from the approach that you are having this discussion with this successful client of yours, not necessarily to promote what you have done for them, but ask questions so that another school district might learn a thing or two from what you guys did. They won't be able necessarily to do it without you. They won't know how to get the windows that clean, but they might be able to start washing them a little bit. And so when you ask those questions, and this is probably where my master's degree from Northwestern comes in terms of journalism. When you ask those questions, ask them in a way that gives the person who's holding the other mic to give value to somebody else out there. And so a case study, the way they were done before, to me, is not as valuable today as they are now, in the sense that before it was just like numbers and we did this and we did that. Write it in a way that somebody can grab it. It's a kind of a playbook for them, but if they want the real play, they got to talk to you.
Yeah, I think, we talk a lot about dashboards and data analytics and being able to measure the impact. A lot of times the mentees that I work with, the founders that I work with, think that those dashboards are for them. Not necessarily. In a lot of ways, those dashboards are for your clients, and the dashboards are for prospects so that you can show the success that you've delivered to those clients. If those can translate into meaningful case studies or meaningful growth or meaningful outcomes over time, that's very helpful. And I think you're right. I think you were kind of touching on the old success story, the old testimonial. People are like, oh, I just have to do that for marketing purposes. No, I think you have to do that for NRR purposes.
Mm-hmm.
I think you have to do that for, I think that's table stakes in this brave new world of school districts and buyers of ed tech products being intentional and judicious in what they're buying.
Nice. Intentional and judicious. Put that on the quote board. The other thing to think about here as we wrap up is a book called Oversubscribed by Daniel Priestley. It's one of those books that I read over and over again. I have it on my Kindle, so if I'm up in the middle of the night, I might read Oversubscribed. Right now, I'm rereading Steve Jobs' biography by Walter Isaacson. But Daniel Priestley talks about this idea that people don't buy from me. They don't buy from John Gamba or Penn's Graduate School of Education. They buy from the people who buy from us. They buy from those success stories. They buy from seeing somebody who is successful by applying the framework or the mindset. And so when you are creating that case study, think about that you are creating that so that other people will buy from you, but you do not have to continuously toot your own horn. To me, that's the old way of doing things. The old way of doing things is okay, was okay then. We have to evolve. And I believe, John, you and I have certainly evolved in this show. If our goal was to focus on sales in the education space and giving people an edge, I truly believe the last 32 minutes, we have done that. What do you?
Well, amen. Totally. But let's talk strategies and let's talk anecdotes. Wow, you really struck a chord there. If founder X, Anurupa from Prisms of Reality, Will from SwiftScore, you can go on, Sophie Smith from College Contact, they can give the best stage 2 minutes on the 2-minute drill at IEI, or they can give an incredible panel presentation at ERDI. So Doug Roberts and Jen Ferrari, shout out to the institutes, because I'm a big believer in them. My big exit was a result of going from 1 client to 10 clients to 50 clients through an institute model. And it wasn't slick John Gamba waving his arms saying how great the product was. It was Brooke pulling a superintendent aside and saying, you got to try this. You got to give them a shot. And SwiftScore didn't get that because Will's good looking and slick. He got that because he earned the customer experience of great onboarding, great implementation, and great customer success that made Brooke look and execute well with her board and her stakeholders. That's the magic that needs to be amplified through this forum. It isn't a great slick salesperson. And I'm big on the demo, right? I'm big on features tell, benefits sell, and a lot of the fundamentals. But at the end of the day, it's the people who have used your product and are willing to reach out to someone else that's going to accelerate sales in a scalable way. Just my experience. And I think that's really important. And so to your point, Josh, slow down. Don't chase more leads. Watch the cold calls. We had these, and think about what a raving fan client can do to increase your prospect base and contract your contact to contract, because Brooke believes in you enough to say to her colleague who trusts her, you got to take a shot on these guys.
Not only what can that raving fan do for your customer base?
Great book, by the way.
Great book. What can that raving fan do for you? And not in a, handout way. I mean, a really easy close is good for the confidence. It gives you
Yeah,
clarity
totally.
in that wasn't hard because my messaging is on point because people want this. And so, focusing, as you said, slowing down, less leads, more precision, which was a word that I saw in LinkedIn, but I can't remember who used it yesterday as their word of the year, but more precision. And when you do that, yes, they will be successful, and that is to be celebrated. And then you also should celebrate yourself, which kind
Yeah.
of brings us back to, I have this uh, vision in my head that if I ever scored a touchdown in the NFL, nothing would make my father more proud than to go into the end zone, find the referee, hand them the football, and go right back onto that sideline and get ready to go back out. But what you don't hear in there is the celebration. And I think as entrepreneurs, we're not so good at celebrating ourselves. We're certainly good at kicking each other's asses when we're down. But do we take the time to celebrate a nice, easy close? And so I encourage everybody out there, because life ain't always easy. When you get those wins, celebrate them, enjoy them, and then get back on the sidelines and get ready to go back in.
Go Canes.
Go Canes. So I am off. I am going to close up my studio here, which I will be honest is a end table with a small fridge on top of it with my computer on top of it. I'm going to close up my studio. I'm going to drink some water and I'm going to go to that game. And so I appreciate everybody who joined. I appreciate everybody who reached out as we transitioned here from Breaking the Grade to Ed Sales Edge. Got some comments back of that's exactly what you should be doing. That's exactly what we need. And a bunch of thank yous. So I'm conveying that message to you, John. And we'll see you in 2 weeks. I will literally see you in a couple weeks back here in Arizona. And next week we will have, what do you know, Superintendent Brooke Olson Farrell on the show because her Ed Sales Edge interview is being released this Sunday. So I hope everybody listens because it will be a continuation of this conversation.
Stay safe. Have fun. Send pictures. I'll see you in 2 weeks.
Thank you all.